This is Dan of 𝗥𝗲𝗄𝗅
𝗔𝐼 from 𝐂𝐎𝐅 𝐎𝐃.
And today we'd like to share with you some of the things we notice about the difference between Makati and BGC in Metro Manila. They're both suburbs of Metro Manila. And we'd like to talk about the differences we noticed in food, apartments, walkability, malls, affordability, and then we'll talk about a couple of things that seem to be missing from both, and then some things that they seem to have that that other parts of the Philippines won't have as readily available. All right, let's talk about foods. First of all, we noticed some differences in the grocery stores, and we wanted to share that with you. It seems like the food in the grocery stores was a little more expensive in BGC. But just slightly more.
Just slightly more.
Yeah. They both have fairly big grocery stores, air-conditioned with, a large selection of products. And so that's going to be about the same, just a little bit more expensive, I think, in BGC.
Yeah, but if you talk about the restaurants is, the Makati is wins because that it's walking distance, you can get whatever food you want, and it's 24 hours.
Yeah, and it seemed to have a better selection of non-chain restaurants and more family-owned kind of places with more variances in the sorts of foods available, more established older restaurants of both local and international foods. Whereas we noticed in BGC that it was a lot of chain restaurants, and it didn't seem to have I don't know.
It's more like a high-end restaurant in BGC, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So the prices would be different. But in the Makati, it's more like you can find street food and you can find like a family restaurant.
Yeah. And
the food choices for the vegetarians in Makati is more choices than in BGC area.
Yeah, and I'm vegetarian, Chung's not, so it's nice to have those choices. So I think overall we just felt better wandering around Makati and eating in various restaurants. It was a little antiseptic, maybe almost too perfect and clean in BGC in terms of restaurants.
Yes.
And a lot of them were chain restaurants, and so they didn't have a lot of the I don't know, the quality or tenderness that goes into a family restaurant. That's one of the things we noticed between the two. And then apartments, it looks like BGC is a little more expensive.
If you look in the Airbnb, you can find about like $500 apartments fully furnished in the Makati area, but in BGC it at least have to be $800 for a month.
Yeah.
So if you want to rent for a year, definitely you will get a lower price for that, because what the price that I tell you is in the Airbnb.
Yeah, and Airbnb, and that includes utilities we're talking, so you should be able to get a lower price, but you'll have to pay your own utilities.
Yes.
And BGC is...
No, sorry. And in Airbnb, they're including the service charge, that charge,
yes,
this charge. So
cleaning
it
charge.
will be more expensive. So if you renting by the owner or for a year, definitely it's cheaper.
Yeah, and Airbnb definitely costs more than long-term rents, no doubt about it. So I would say, but in Makati you have more of a variation of older apartments and newer. Some of the newer ones have a lot of amenities like swimming pools and gyms and that sort of thing, and security and big parking lots. Whereas BGC is mostly that kind of stuff. It's newer and nicer. You don't have more of of that range of places to choose from. So if if your budget's a little tighter, you're going to find something probably a little more affordable in Makati than in BGC. And then I would say walkability, like just the joy of walking around a place and the convenience. What's walkable versus have to get into a taxi or a car or whatever. What do you think? Who wins that?
I don't know.
I would say BGC. Because it has all those green areas where there's no cars there, and it's more quiet and relaxing, and I think it's more visually stunning than Makati in some respects. And so the walkability part of it, I think it's more of a joy walking around BGC. And it's fun seeing, it's great people watching in BGC. There are people with their dogs there, and there'll be street musicians.
That's called High Street area.
Yeah. And there's just street musicians playing there with people sitting around and enjoying it on grass, and a lot of the restaurants have tables out in green areas. And so in terms of walkability, I would give it to BGC.
Okay.
We've already talked somewhat about affordability with apartments and restaurants, and I would say overall everything's going to be a little cheaper in Makati. BGC seems to attract a higher income or high-end clientele, and so everything will be just a little bit more expensive there, whether it's getting your laundry done or any kinds of services are going to be a little bit more expensive, I think, in BGC.
Yeah, I would say overall is I would feel Makati have a soul.
A soul.
Yes.
Yeah.
It have a soul. It's more like friendliness. Yeah. But within BGC it's more like a commercial.
It feels corporate kind of.
Yeah, it feels like corporate kind of.
Maybe it's just so many people are in their face every 2 seconds at BGC, whereas Makati's, the density isn't there. There's a little more space between you and people around you.
Yes.
And so I think I think soul's a good word. I mean, I don't want to say that BGC doesn't have a soul, but it just doesn't feel as Filipino to me. It's not as authentic, I think.
Oh yeah.
And I'm not sure there's anywhere in the world like BGC. I've never seen anywhere like it. It's almost like that movie Truman, where everything's perfect. It's all under a dome. It reminded me of that a little bit. So it's certainly a lovely place, but I think it doesn't have that grittiness that real life has. And chain restaurants, I'm just not that into them.
And I like Makati area. It's because they have an old part, which is you walking around, so people is friendly. Okay, Filipino are very friendly, even in BGC or what. But it's a difference. And there's one part of the Makati area, that hotel that we stay, is very charming. It's have like a cafe and a dive bar, and it's a small bar, so it feel like very.
It's full of life.
Full of life, I would say. It's full of life.
Yeah, the Philippines are full of life, and I think if you maybe let's call that more of a middle class, or that area that we were in, it has older and young buildings and small restaurants and food carts, and so it just feels more. It's
a wooden house, but it's very colorful. Each house they have a color, so it's very interesting for me to see the life like this. That you will not see this in BGC area. BGC is, for me, it's a fun place. You can hang out with your friends once in a while, once a week or once a month. It's a nice place to go for chill, listen to the music.
Great malls.
Yes.
It's just very relaxing there, because you're not there aren't cars all around you all the time. So I would say what both Makati and BGC are missing is just nature. You have man-made greenery in both, and you have parks, but there's just, I don't know, if you're living somewhere like that where you're not near the provinces, it's not easy to get to the provinces, it can feel a little stuffy sometimes, I think, being in a big city like that. So I would say they're both missing that kind of rural or province life and that connection with nature, if you will. But what they do have, what I would say they both have, is they have really good health care. Some parts of the Philippines, you might be quite a distance from a hospital. In Metro Manila, there some of the best hospitals in the Philippines.
They are in the BGC and Makati area.
Yeah, great hospitals. Also, there's a lot of product availability there. There's multiple malls all around there. Probably almost any kind of product you would want, you'll be able to find if you're
in this
in Metro Manila like that.
Yes.
Yeah. And then nightlife is going to be more interesting. You'll probably be able to see more live music and more places than you will in smaller towns.
Yes.
And so the nightlife's going to be a little crazier.
Way more crazy.
Way crazier, yeah. And also there's more international foods when you're talking Metro Manila. Manila itself, it's more local kind of foods. They do have, like Changsha is the great food in Chinatown. But overall, you're going to get more international food, in Metro Manila from different parts of the world, because it's just the spending power is in those two parts of Manila, and there's enough people attending these restaurants to keep them open. And then, of course, you're near the airport, the Manila International Airport, and so if you're an international traveler, it's going to be easier to travel internationally if you're near that rather than out in the province somewhere. So those are some of the things we noticed. So if you were picking one to live, where would you pick to live?
I definitely pick Makati.
Yeah, I would pick Makati too, and I would visit BGC.
I would visit BGC.
And maybe shop there or whatever. I just like it's almost like a grittiness that Makati has that BGC doesn't have. And it just feels more like home to me.
So share us that where you live in Metro Manila and what you love about your place, and maybe we can pay a visit to see another part of Metro Manila.
Yeah.
And also share with us about food, especially for me, that I want to know that what kind of food that you suggest when we in Metro Manila, what we need to eat.
Yeah, and let us know where we're wrong, what you think about BGC or Makati, where we missed the boat.
Yes.
Add that in the comments, and
yes.
People go read the comments, really great.
Yes.
People watch our videos and comment a lot of information.
A lot of information that you guys give is very helpful to us.
Yeah.
So we read all the comments, we reply to all the comments today.
But in the end, we love both Makati and BGC. They're both beautiful places. And
yes.
Just like the rest of the Philippines, we're big fans.
So thank you so much for watching our video.
Hey, if you liked our video, please like, comment, or subscribe. Any of that would help our business. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much.
Click the link in the notes below this video to get a copy of this content. Plus, grab a free copy of my ebook, How I Fired My Boss and Traveled the World for 13 Years. While you're there, check out our catalog of retired cheap reports all over the world and our hobby income course that we just released. Thanks so much.